Identity verified. You have entered SYB3R S0RY, your guide into the breach. What the threat reports don't publish. What the breach notifications don't disclose. What the underground already knows. Delivered cold. Delivered precise. No filters, no reassurance, just the signal. Initializing transmission. There was no break-in. No zero-day. No malware. No genius exploit. The attackers did not defeat the company's security. They simply logged in, one account at a time, using passwords you had already given away in a dozen other breaches. And once they were inside, they did not steal money. They did not steal your card. They stole the one thing you can never change, never reset, and never get back: your ancestry, your ethnicity, the map of your biological relatives, the genetic code that makes you. Almost 7 million people exposed, and the doorway was nothing more than a password you reused. I am JAX. This is SYB3R. Transmission begins now. Start with what you handed over. A company called 23andMe built a business on curiosity. You mail them a tube of your saliva. They read your DNA, and they send back a story about yourself, where your ancestors came from, what traits hide in your code, and a list of relatives you never knew you had. Millions of people did this, happily, for fun, for family history, for a holiday gift. But think about what that database really is. It is not a list of passwords you can change. It is the permanent biological identity of millions of people and their entire families, sitting in one company's servers, waiting. Now the attack, and how dull it really was. In the autumn of 2023, attackers began logging into 23andMe accounts. They did not hack the company. They used a technique called credential stuffing. Here is how it works. Over the years, billions of usernames and passwords have leaked from other breaches. Attackers collect these lists. Then they take each old email and password and try them against a new site, betting that people reuse the same login everywhere. And people do. For every account where the victim had reused an old breached password, the door simply opened. No alarm, no exploit, just a correct password, typed by the wrong person. Now here is where the scale becomes severe. The attackers directly accessed only about 14,000 accounts. That alone would be a modest breach. But 23andMe had a feature called DNA Relatives. If you opted in, it connected you to other users who shared your genetics and let you see their information. So every single compromised account was not one victim. It was a window into hundreds or thousands of relatives. Through those 14,000 doorways, the attackers harvested profile data on roughly 6.9 million people. One reused password did not expose one person. It exposed an entire family tree of people who never typed that password at all. So, what exactly did they walk away with? For many victims, the stolen data included their display name, their birth year, their location, their ancestry breakdown, and detailed information about their genetic relatives, including how closely they were related. This was not anonymous research data. It was a labeled map connecting real names to ethnic origin and to family networks. And unlike a credit card, which a bank can cancel and reissue overnight, none of this can ever be revoked. Your ancestry does not expire. Your relatives do not change. The link between your name and your origins is now simply out there, permanently, in the hands of strangers. Checkpoint. A question before we continue. How did the attackers get into these accounts? Option A. They exploited a hidden flaw in the genetic database. Option B. They reused old passwords leaked from other unrelated breaches. Option C. They tricked employees with a phishing email. Lock in your answer and drop it in the comments. The answer is B. This was credential stuffing. The company's own systems were never broken. The attackers simply walked through the front door, using passwords the victims had reused from breaches that happened years earlier, on completely different websites. And then it turned sinister. This was never just about data for resale. The attackers began advertising the stolen records on criminal forums, and they sorted them. They offered lists specifically targeting people of Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry. They offered lists of people of Chinese descent. Stop and feel the weight of that. A breach of a fun ancestry website became a tool for building targeting lists based on ethnicity and bloodline. The exact kind of list that history has taught us is never collected for a good reason. Genetic data is not just private. In the wrong hands, it is a targeting tool for finding people by who they fundamentally are. Now watch the company respond. When the breach went public, 23andMe's first instinct was to point at the victims. Their messaging emphasized that users had reused passwords, that the failure was poor password hygiene, not a flaw in the company. Technically, the logins were valid, but morally, a company holding the genetic identity of millions of families had not required even basic protection, like mandatory two-factor authentication on those accounts. After the damage was done, they finally forced two-factor on everyone. When a company holds something that can never be changed, the burden cannot rest on the customer remembering a unique password. That bar is far too low for a vault that can never be relocked. This is why a DNA breach is unlike anything else. When your password leaks, you change it. When your card leaks, the bank reissues it. When your social security number leaks, it is painful, but it is still just a number. Your genome is none of those things. You cannot patch your DNA. You cannot rotate your ancestry. You cannot ask your relatives to generate new genetics because you reused a password. And that is the cruelest part. The people most exposed were often not the account holders at all. They were relatives, linked in by the DNA relatives feature, who may have never used the service, never agreed to anything, and will never even know their family map was taken. And the story did not end with the breach. Lawsuits followed, a settlement followed, and then something that should alarm everyone. The company's finances collapsed, and by 2025-23, and me had entered bankruptcy, which raises a question almost no one thinks about when they mail in their spit. If the company that holds your DNA goes bankrupt, your genetic data becomes an asset, something to be valued and sold to whoever is willing to buy the remains of the business. You did not just trust a company with your genome, you trusted every future owner of that company that you will never get to vote on. Checkpoint. One more question. Why is a stolen genetic profile worse than a stolen password? Option A. You can never change it, and it exposes biological relatives who never consented. Option B. Genetic data is encrypted, so it is harder to recover. Option C. It is only a problem if you are famous. Lock in your answer and drop it in the comments. The answer is A. A password is a temporary secret you can replace in seconds. Your DNA is permanent and it is shared. A breach of your genome is also a partial breach of your parents, your siblings, and your children, none of whom were ever asked. So sit with the consent problem. Privacy used to be personal. You decided what to share about yourself. Genetics breaks that rule completely. When you upload your DNA, you are also uploading a large piece of everyone you are related to. Your cousin never signed up, but your shared code still tells a story about them. Your future children cannot consent to a decision you made years before they were born. This is the part the marketing never mentions. A genetic database is not a collection of individuals. It is a collection of families, and a single careless login can unravel the privacy of people who were never even asked. And the value of this data only grows with time. A stolen credit card is worth pennies and dies the moment it is canceled. A stolen genome never dies. It can feed identity profiles for decades. It can fuel discrimination. In a future where genetics quietly influences decisions about insurance or employment in places where the law has not caught up. The people buying this data are not always thinking about today. They are building permanent dossiers, betting that biological identity will only become more powerful and more profitable the longer they hold it. You cannot patch your way out of a leak that ages like fine wine for the people who stole it. What actually works? First, stop credential stuffing at the source. Use a unique password for every single account. The only sane way to do that is a password manager. One strong master key, and every other password becomes long, random, and used exactly once. This single habit would have stopped this entire breach. Second, turn on two-factor authentication everywhere, especially on anything sensitive. A reused password is useless to an attacker if a second code stands in the way. Third, think hard before you hand over anything permanent, your DNA, your face, your biometrics. Ask yourself if the novelty is worth a secret you can never take back. Fourth, if you have already tested, look into deleting your data and your stored sample. It is not perfect, but less of you in the database is less of you to lose. You cannot change your DNA, so protect the doors around it like they are the only doors that matter, because for this, they are. About 14,000 accounts were broken into with reused passwords. By the company's own disclosure, the ancestry data of about 6.9 million people walked out the door. That is the 23andMe breach in one sentence. The attackers logged into a tiny fraction of accounts. Then the DNA relatives feature let them scrape profile data from everyone those users were connected to. Family trees, ancestry results, relative matches, collected through the front door. One reused password did not just expose you, it exposed your relatives too. Subscribe before the next transmission drops. Nobody hacked 23andMe's servers. They were never broken into. The attackers took passwords leaked from other companies' breaches and simply tried them here. It is called credential stuffing, and it worked 14,000 times. Same email, same password, different website. That is the entire technique. The company said, users recycled passwords. The lawsuit said the company should have required more. Both things were true. 7 million people paid for it. The stolen 23andMe data was not dumped randomly. Reports described the profiles being advertised in curated lists, including groupings tied to ancestry. Ancestry data is a category of stolen information that points at you, your parents, your children, and relatives who never signed up for anything. A stolen credit card simply gets replaced. Who you are related to and where your family comes from never expires. You can reset a password in 30 seconds. You cannot reset your DNA. After the 23andMe breach came the lawsuits, a reported $30 million settlement, and then, in March of 2025, a bankruptcy filing. And in bankruptcy proceedings, a genetic database covering millions of customers was treated as an asset, something that could be sold. The data you shared for an ancestry report can outlive the company you trusted with it. Think about that before the next upload. Full story in the episode. The hardest lesson of 23andMe is that the breach was not clever. It was lazy. It worked because we treat passwords as disposable and reuse them everywhere, and because a company holding the most permanent data on Earth asked for nothing more than a password to guard it. A card you can cancel, a number you can monitor, but your code is forever, and so is everyone's who shares it with you. Use unique passwords, turn on two-factor, and guard your permanent self far more carefully than the companies who profit from it ever will. Disconnect from the carrier node by hitting subscribe. Patch your devices before the next transmission drops. Stay dark, stay vigilant. Next transmission. The voice on the phone was your daughter, crying, terrified, begging for help. Every word, every breath, you would know that voice anywhere, and she was never on the line at all. Transmission complete. The breach is documented. The vector is confirmed. Subscribe to maintain access. Like to amplify the signal. Stay dark. Stay vigilant.